All right, guys, welcome to week 3. My name is Brad Pickett, and I'm taking you through the Multifamily Accelerator. This is the week when we start talking to brokers. A lot of people get nervous about this, but we're going to go through it all. So just hang in there, and I'll show you some tips and tricks. So here's what we're going to talk about this week. What is the primary purpose of the broker? Really important to think about how they're thinking. You've got to frame your call as a sales call and burning money. We'll talk about that. Do your homework, ask the right questions, be respectful and natural. So let's dive into each one of these in detail. So what is the broker's primary purpose? I really like to keep things simple. If you can just break this down into one thing, that broker's job is to make sure you can perform. That's really it. I mean, you could say get the highest price for his client, but that's secondary. If you've got to be able to perform. So if you think about when a broker's talking to you, the one thing he's always thinking is this guy wasting my time, or can he actually get this done? So we'll go into more on how to approach that here in just a little bit. So how can you eventually prove it? So in the very beginning of the conversation with the broker, I call it the dance, because it's a mix between him wanting to be respectful to new buyers and build new relationships, but also wanting not to waste his time and make sure that you can perform. So in the beginning, he might not be like, okay, tell me exactly how many properties you have, how much money you have in the bank, blah, 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 blah. But eventually that's going to come up. If you submit an LOI and it gets accepted, they're going to go through all of the properties owned, and you may be saying, well, I don't have any properties, or I don't have any money in the bank. That's why we build a network, and we're going to talk about that. So keep in mind, everything we're doing here is as a team. So in the beginning, he's not going to be like, prove it to me that you can perform on this, but eventually that's going to happen. So it's kind of like a dance in the beginning where he's being polite because he wants to entertain all buyers, but at some point he's going to tighten that vice up a little bit, and he's going to be like, okay, can you perform? And the idea here is to have enough of a network put together that you will actually be able to perform. Okay, so utilizing your network, that's a huge thing too. So when you start out in multifamily, and I talk about this in my book, 5 Ways to Buy Apartments with Zero Down. When you start out in multifamily, a lot of people are starting. Everybody has to start from somewhere, right? So that could be no money, no properties, and it's tough to get started. But what you want to do is you want to build your team, and we're going to talk about that in the very next video. But building your team out so you can utilize your network, and you can say, let me give you an example. Like when I used to buy houses for cash, before I had cash, I would say that, yeah, we just bought a house down the road on Burton Avenue for cash. And did I actually buy that house? No. But did one of my friends who I partner with sometimes on deals, did he buy that house? Yeah, he did. So you got to utilize your network, and you got to say, for example, if you're in Grant Cardone's real estate club, our group buys, or owns over 10,000 units or over 20,000 units, or whatever you need to do to put your group together. And as you build your network, just remember you can utilize other people's experience. So for example, if you had somebody that was going to be your GP on a deal, and you knew that he had 5,000 units, well, that's your network. So eventually when you have that conversation with the broker about what you own or what you can do, you're talking in terms of your network, not just yourself. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely utilize your network. That's really the only way to get off the ground, guys, because you start at zero. You have to find people that have experience, and you have to utilize them, and you have to consider their experience, your experience, when you're talking with a broker, because your team is the team that's buying. It's not just you as an individual. Okay, so it's a sales call and burning money. This is super important as well. So you are selling yourself to the broker. So a lot of times, if you think of the relationship of going to buy a car from a used car dealership, you're interviewing the salesman, and you're saying, what does this car have? Are you lying to me? What's your best price? Da, 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 da. And you're being very aggressive as a buyer. You can't be that way with a broker. With a broker, you have to sell yourself to the broker. You have to approach it as getting the broker to want to work with you, to know that you can perform, and to want to do business with you. So it's not so much what you don't want to do is you don't want to call them up and say, man, this is a trashy property. I don't like this. The cap rate's way too low. And why are you guys asking for this? Why is your pro forma so aggressive? All those things are probably true. We do know that they put, some crazy numbers in the pro forma and that they are aggressive to get the most for their sellers, but you don't want to sound that way. What you want to say instead, is I love this property and I'm trying to figure out a way to buy it, despite the fact that you guys' asking price puts me at a 3.5 cap and interest rates are at 6.5. So maybe I'm missing something here, Mr. Broker, because we really like this property. So you really want to just tell them you love it, you want to buy it, you're very interested in it, and it's like trying to just keep that energy flowing towards I want it, I want it, I want it. Not sounding desperate. You're still going to bring up the concerns. That's why we say I would love to buy it. I want to find a way to buy it, despite or even though my underwriter's having trouble with the fact that it needs this much capex or this much whatever it is. So insert problem there. So you always want to come at it as if you really want to buy it. And the next thing is you want to talk to them in a way that you're saying, we have all this money raised, we have all this money that we're just looking to invest. I have investors that are ready to put cash up, and we have to find a place for our money, but we got to get the right return. Basically, we're looking for a great opportunity with a great return, and we've got this money, and we need to get it into a property quick. But I have to get it into a property quick, but I also have to make sure that I take care of my investors. So can you explain to me how you came up with this pro forma or whatever it is? So you always want to approach it as a sales call. Okay, number 3 is do your homework. So before you call the broker, you're going to want to know a few different things. You're going to want to know similar deals in the market. You're going to want to definitely know the details of the subject property. Read the operating memorandum, guys. Like I don't expect you to read every single OM that you have, but if you're serious about the property, take 20 minutes and read the entire OM and understand it. And know the details of the subject property, know the price per unit, know what the cap rate is that they're asking for, know what their expense ratio is, and come up with questions. Maybe know that their management fee is 5% and it's really low, so maybe that's something you want to talk to the broker about. But take the time to know the property, and that way, and this is more important when you're brand new. If you were a very experienced person and you'd been calling brokers all the time, you might just call the broker up right out of the gates because you've got so much experience, and you might just say, hey, tell me more about this, blah, 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 blah. But if you're brand new, you really want to make sure you know what you're talking about. You know the area, you know the details of the subject property, and you've read the OM because the broker has put a lot of time into preparing the operating memorandum, him or his team has. So you want to show him that you spent time reading what he put together. It's very important. Try to answer your own questions before you call. So, okay, I'm trying to understand why they did this, and just go look through it. Why are they using such a low number for taxes? Okay, we'll go to the assessor's tax page and figure out what the taxes are. Do your own calculations. That's a great way to learn, and it's a great way to try to make yourself more valuable when you call the broker. You can be like, hey, I see you guys have this tax number, but I talked to the assessor and he said the tax rate's this. I'm just wondering if I'm missing something here, right? So you're always trying to answer your own questions. You're trying to be resourceful as possible. Don't just be that person that just calls everybody and tries to get information because it makes you look unprofessional. Okay, so ask the right questions. There's so many questions that we can put here. And as a matter of fact, guys, I'm going to actually put a PDF document attached to this. It should be right below. And I'm just going to give you guys a lot of good questions to ask the broker that are very important. But one of the main things you want to know is, what did it trade for last? There's several of them. I'm not going to read the whole list, but what is the price expectation? Who is the buyer for this product? Like, what are they looking for? How many buyers do you think are going to show up? What do I have to do to buy it right now is another good one. I'm just reading off a list that I have here, but I'll put that below. So you want to definitely ask the right questions. Whoever asks the right questions is in control. Another very, very important question is to understand the seller's motivation. Is he a real seller? So what does that mean? That means that some sellers, like, they'll put something on the market at, a lower cap rate than market, and they'll just see if they can get it sold. And if it doesn't sell, it's no big deal. They'll just hold it. That's not a real seller. A real seller is somebody that has plans for the money, has to sell for whatever reason. Maybe doesn't have to, but wants to sell for whatever reason, and they're actually going to sell no matter what. So let's say that the property, they're asking 10 million, and someone that's not a real seller, like, if they don't get 10 million, they're just going to be like, bag it. If I don't get 9.5 or above, I'm just going to walk. It's not a big deal. I'm just kind of testing the market. And a broker knows that, because brokers want real sellers too. But there are some sellers that just put stuff out there at a somewhat of a high price. You see this more in an up market. Right now we're in a down market, but they'll put stuff out there just to kind of test the market, just to see if it'll sell. So if it sells, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. That's not a real seller. A real seller is someone that's like, dude, I'm out of 100 units and lower. I'm building 400 units in downtown. I need to transfer this money over to my new project. We're going to try to maximize what we can get, but either way, we're selling it no matter what. That's a real seller. And that's a conversation, more of an advanced conversation, that you do want to have with the broker, because if you're dealing with a seller that isn't a real seller, then you could waste a lot of time. They could be asking too much, and you could be trying to convince them that they should take less because of cap rates, because of expense ratios, blah, 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 blah. But they're not ever going to sell anyways if it's less than 9.5 million. So that's a waste of time. What do you think this will trade for? We went through that. What are the things that make this property unique? Well, I noticed you've got a really low aggressive cap rate or high price point. Tell me about this. Oh, well, it's in walking distance to blah, 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 blah. We've got this, we've got that. Okay, cool. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't. Also, is there anything I should be aware of? When was the last time the roof was replaced, or what is the heating and cooling system? So you need to be aware of what CapEx you may have to go in with. And a lot of times, again, this information will be in the OM. So, and always ask them about other properties that they have too. Just be like, do you have anything else that's similar to this? And that comes back to knowing your buy box. Remember, we talked about our buy box. Be very specific about what you want from a broker. Let them know what that is. Okay, be respectful and natural. So some of this stuff sounds like it's obvious, but it's worth going over. Be yourself, no one else can. So the bottom line is, if you try too hard to be something you're not, people are going to be able to tell, right? So you want to just be able to naturally, maybe you're really good at socializing, but you suck at math. Well, don't fake like you understand math then. Just be yourself. Be true to yourself, because when you're authentic, people really can feel that, and brokers have a nose for it. They're like detectives that are trying to determine if this guy's for real or not. That's literally what they are. They're like detectives determining whether you're real or not. And if you're not being real, they can sense it. Get the mess ups out of the way. So this is something that goes for all sales, all calls. You're not going to be perfect. You are going to sound stupid. I'm sorry, but it happens. I definitely have sounded stupid many times on the phone when I'm talking to brokers, and I probably will again at some point. So just don't worry about that. It's all about getting the repetitions out of the way so that you can get to becoming natural and better at it. Be very conscious of their time as well. Some people, when you're talking to them, they just keep you on the phone, and it's very rude. We notice this in groups too. Some people will just keep talking and asking questions when there's like a bunch of other people that have questions, and they don't allow the other people to speak. So it's interesting, because most people are aware of that and are very conscious of other people's time. But if you're not, you need to be, right? Because I feel like the people that aren't have no idea that they're even annoying everybody. So think from their viewpoint. So again, this is a game where you're always just trying to imagine, what does this broker want? Well, he wants someone who can perform. What is his main concern? What is he thinking? And if you can start to always think from his viewpoint, then you can come to him with the things that he wants to hear. And get to the point, guys. Like, be very direct. Don't focus on small details that aren't important. Focus on what's important. Write out your I think I might talk about this later in the in the summary, but right now I'm going to talk about it anyways. You're going to want to write out all your questions. Like as if you're looking at a property, just write out every question you have. Then try to answer those questions yourself. Make sure you've read the entire OM. Make sure you've done your market research. And then after you've gone through all that, get it down to like the most important questions that you still have, even after you try to solve them yourself. Whether that's through a Google search, whether that's through reading the rent rolls, whether that's through understanding the market cap rate in the area you're searching. But try to write them all out, solve them yourself, and then call the broker, and then think from their viewpoint and just get to the point quickly, because they really appreciate that. The more money people make, the more they're going to get to the point first. Don't tell a story, ask a question, and then if they want more details, they'll ask for more details. Okay, guys, so in summary, let's go through this again. Remember, the primary purpose of the broker is to find out if you can perform. That's really it. Secondary is to get the highest price, but they're just making sure that you can perform, because they hate doing the dance with somebody and then having them pull out right at the last second. That's like the worst thing ever, because it makes them look like a fool to their seller, and it wastes everybody's time. And people don't want to waste time in this business. There's so much money on the line. Remember, it's a sales call. You're pitching yourself, and that you have burning money, man. I got to get this money placed. I have to place it responsibly, Mr. Broker, but I got to get it placed. What else you got? How can we make this work? Is this guy a real seller? Do your homework. If you're serious about the property, you need to be able to analyze it, read the OM, understand everything on the OM. By the way, if you're reading through an OM, you don't know what something means, stop and look it up. Figure out, anytime you don't know the definition of a word, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to clear that word. That is so huge, because if you go on past a definition and continue, it makes your brain foggy. Like if you're reading something and you hit a word that you don't know and you keep reading, it makes your brain foggy and it makes you not remember everything after the misunderstood word. It's a crazy technology, but it's very important. So anytime you don't know what something means, just look it up and you just get better and better and better. Again, ask the right questions and make a list and get right to the point, and just be yourself, be respectful, be natural. All right, guys, that's all we got for Talking to Brokers.